To talk about the squatting action now as an exercise. So in the first video we looked at the sit to stand movement, and we saw that there were a couple of important features there about balance and about stability. So we can keep those in mind as we're looking at the squatting action. So all I'm going to do to start with is a simple sit to stand movement. So I'm going to start with my feet wide apart so that I'm more stable, and my feet are slightly turned out, so they're wider than my hips. And then as I go down, remember we said that when you're squatting, the weight goes forwards and back. So if I'm sitting down, my weight is going backwards. So I need something to go forwards to balance that out. So what I'm going to do is take my arms forwards as I sit down, and I can do that nice in a controlled fashion. Now, of course, if I don't take my arms forward, it becomes harder in terms of my legs and also harder to control. So, a progression of the exercise would be to do the same thing, but my hands behind my head, and now it becomes harder on my legs. Okay, and I'm mindful when I'm doing that of controlling the movement so I don't fall back down, but of also taking weight equally on both feet. Now, if I want to make it harder still, I can use some weights. So I could use one dumbbell, and if I grip the dumbbell in this position, I'm performing something called a goblet squat. So the sort of shape of the hands is a bit goblet-like. Or I can use two dumbbells onto my hands. At home, if you don't have dumbbells, you can just use cans of food or one big weight, and you can get a rucksack and put some things in it and hold that on your chest. So that gives you that little bit of resistance. Now, the exercise is harder if I don't use the stool, because now what I have to do is to control my movement. So it's the same action, feet apart, slightly turned out, weight equally distributed between my right and left foot. As I reach forward, I come down and I stop just as my hips are slightly above my knees. And I'm using my hands for balance. I can progress that using my hands behind my head in this way. And I want to make sure as I'm doing that I don't lean heavily on one side. So if I'm taking more weight on one side, I want to make sure that I'm equal. And if you imagine a thread from your nose, it should land between your 2 feet rather than towards one side. Okay, so that's the stand to sit movement progressed into a squat exercise.